For my critical project in Moral Education 303, I will investigate anti-bullying strategies and policies that are being used in classrooms and schools throughout Regina and surrounding areas. But before I do this, we first need to have an idea of what bullying actually is. Since I cannot use actual research materials for this project, the following information in Part 1 comes from personal experiences as a victim of bullying myself and from handling particular bullying incidents as a student teacher during pre-internship and internship in grade 4 classrooms. I've also gained information from teacher interviews I've done so far, as well as 10 interviews with adults who have been victims of bullying during their own elementary school years. These interviews are components of my final project, and more information about these interviews will be included in parts 2 and 3. This video will be broken up into 3 parts. For the first part, I will provide a definition of bullying. Then I will discuss who is typically involved in a bullying situation, namely the bully, victim, and the bystander. And finally, I will investigate the types of bullying that occur in the elementary school setting. Bullying is a form of abuse that is usually repeated by one or more students over another individual or group. From my understanding, bullying happens every single day and is part of the social fabric of schools. So even though I will be talking to teachers from 3 separate school divisions and already have talked to a few, they will have much to say about the bullying that goes on in their classrooms and schools. However, from what I have heard from most adults, bullying used to be more common for the last generation. Believe it or not, bullying was sometimes seen as a way to develop character and coping skills, and it was just a part of growing up and toughening up. But today, bullying is seen as very negative, and most teachers and schools have specific anti-bullying strategies and policies in place. But more information on these strategies and policies will be presented in Part 3 of my project. Bullies. Bullies are those who initiate the abuse and develop a feeling of hurt and distress for a victim or victims. From my own experience in elementary school, I remember that most bullies were actually victims in past grades or situations. In other words, their self-esteem lowered due to their own experience as a victim. Because they weren't confident about themselves, they felt like they had to prove that they were tough, powerful, and controlling, and the only way they could do this was by bullying another individual. When I interviewed one teacher for this project, she shared that one of her students is a bully just to get attention. She also shared that bullies at her school are perceived as bossy, saying things like, "Get away from me, I can do whatever I want," or "I want it, gimme." It is difficult to conclude how many bullies actually stop their negative behavior altogether. I know many of my classmates who have been bullies in the past and have finally come to the realization that their actions were indeed wrong. However, I do know others who have never changed their ways. Victims. Victims of bullying are those who receive the abuse and develop feelings of hurt and distress. Some victims of bullying do not report the bullying, but some do. From my childhood, I remember some students actually telling the teacher about their bullying situations because they were scared for their own bodies and feelings. Bullying really does hurt. However, most did not confide in a teacher as they didn't want to be seen as a tattletale. And really, at my own elementary school from childhood, being a tattletale was a huge issue amongst the younger students, and if you were a tattletale, no one would like you. As a victim myself, I never told the teacher about what was happening to me for this exact reason. However, I did tell my parents about it, and from hearing stories during the interviews for this project, I think many kids actually did tell their parents. From my recent internship experience, I realized that most kids were bullied because that they were different. So in my classroom, I dealt with specific situations that targeted the victim's race, weight, intelligence, whether it be high or low, inability to read fluently, along with many other examples. From pre-internship, I remember one student from the school who was bullied on a regular basis. This surprised me because she was pretty, wore nice clothes, did not appear or look different in any way, and got high marks, according to her teacher. But why was she a victim, you may ask? Well, because she could not stick up for herself. According to her teacher, she did not appear to be the victim type, but in reality, she was very meek and shy around others. So, from my understanding, if you can't stand up for yourself, the easier it is for others to bully you. Bystanders. Bystanders are those who watch the bullying occur, but do not initiate the bullying in particular. For my eLib 216 class this semester, I wrote an essay on a children's book entitled Say Something, written by Peggy Moss and illustrated by Leah Lyon, published in 2004. In the book, the protagonist observes others being bullied. She feels sorry for them, but does not think about getting involved to make them feel better. She does not stand up to the bully herself. It is only when she is bullied that she realizes how much it hurts. She is mad that nobody does anything to help her. But with her brother's help, she realizes that she had done nothing earlier to stop it, and she decides to sit with the bullied girl on the bus. From this book, I conclude that the development of empathy is so key if one is to stand up for another. In this case, one can know how it feels and place oneself in another person's shoes. However, bystanders are often scared to stand up to a bully and do not want to get involved. As said by a teacher whom I interviewed last week, other kids typically don't get involved. They don't want to get bullied themselves, and they don't feel like it is their place. For the remainder of this video, I will describe the 4 main types of bullying. I have gained the 4 following definitions from my first interview with an elementary teacher in East Regina. The first kind of bullying I would like to discuss is physical bullying, which is bullying to somebody's body or belongings. Few examples include hitting, punching, kicking, shoving, and wrecking someone's property. The second kind is verbal, which is bullying that uses explicit language. So this can include teasing about appearance and clothing, name-calling, mocking, insulting, and racist comments. The third type is emotional, which is bullying that exposes another in a negative light. This can include gossiping, embarrassing someone, exclusion, and spreading rumors. And finally, the last kind of bullying I would like to talk about is cyberbullying, which is becoming very common now because it is bullying through the use of technology. This can include Facebook comments about another, inappropriate texting that harms others, or insults directed through MSN and other chat rooms. As we can see, bullying is a major issue in our schools and again is part of that social fabric naturally taking place in the elementary setting. Part 1 of my critical project has provided us with a definition of bullying, participants usually involved in bullying situations, as well as the types of bullying. Stay tuned for Part 2, in which we will read about personal bullying stories and gain a better understanding of the long-term consequences of bullying. Thank you for listening.